All right, hi everybody. Welcome to CANSIDA's second live webinar. My name is Jill Clark and I'm the president-elect of CANSIDA, and I'm the athletic communications coordinator at the University of Toronto. Our president, Ben Mathieu, is caught up in another meeting and hopefully will be joining us soon. But to get things started, I'd like to introduce Mathieu Tanguay. Mathieu has been at Université Laval for the past eight years and is currently CANSIDA's RSEQ rep. So without further ado, here is Mathieu with today's topic of social media creative content during a pandemic.
Thank you, Jill. Hello, everyone. As Jill said, my name is Mathieu Tanguay. I'm in my 9th year as the SID of the Université Laval Rougeard in Quebec City. So I do speak French, and I'm going to do today's presentation in English. But I want to say a couple of words in French to start this off. Salut tout le monde. Merci d'être présent pour ce webinaire sur les idées de contenu créatif sur les médias sociaux en temps de pandémie. Vous comprendrez que puisque la majorité des personnes ici parlent anglais, je vais faire ma présentation en anglais, sauf que n'hésitez pas une seconde si vous avez des questions. On va prendre les questions. Si vous avez des questions, posez-les en français. Ça va me faire plaisir d'y répondre en français. So, did you give me the opportunity to share my screen? I'm going to do that right now. All right. So I'm happy to be here today to talk about creative content on social media during this COVID-19 era. First off, I just want to say this. I may be doing this presentation today, but in no way does it mean that we are doing things better than anyone. Today, I want to share with you some ideas that we developed, some stuff that we did that were hits for us on social media since last March. But you may recognize some things that you personally did at your own school. And maybe you did it even better than we did. So, but if something that we today rings a bell and leads you to develop your own version of that idea or to push it even further, then perfect. So here we go. I've seen a great quote on this matter from Alabama's football coach, Nick Saban, who just won his 7th national title, the most in college football history last month. He said, "I didn't invent any of this stuff. I learned it from somebody. So I'm always looking for the next guy I'm going to learn something from." And that's pretty much how we operate at Laval, I would say. Me and my colleague, Frédéric Bérère, we're looking at what others are doing, not only in sports teams, but big events, music festivals. We often get inspiration from our content elsewhere. So here it goes. I'm going to show you some of the social media content that we created since last March, some things that works for us, may not for you, and vice versa. But here's where we went at Laval in the last year. So when the pandemic started, it cut short the 2019-2020 season for some teams, but we still had lots of events and competitions to talk about from last season. So early on in March, we did an event of the year bracket. We selected one event that happened in the last year from each of our 18 teams, and we created matchups and we let our fans select the winner. So that was when Facebook still had the survey option, which was cool, but you can still do something similar. I'll show you later in another example. So all in all, we had more than 60,000 votes for those bracket matchups. And on the day of the final, we did a pre-game show, which consisted in a Zoom interview with student athletes from the 2 events that were in the final. So they were talking about how things happened during those events. And we streamed it on Facebook before we opened the voting. So it was really a really fun event to create and follow. And since it's a popular vote, it's not necessarily the one you think that's going to win that does. Last year, we had our women's rugby team winning the first national title in program history, and they didn't even make it to the brackets final. So in the end, what was most satisfying was that we had a lot of student athletes that thanked us for doing this because they were feeling a bit depressed with what was happening. And that event gave them an opportunity to focus on the happier things that happened in the last year. Next, the student athlete blog. We started this blog 6 years ago, and the inspiration was clearly the Players Tribune. I say student athletes blog, but over the years, we also got coaches, athletic directors, alumni to write stories in their own words about a particular experience they had with the Rouge et Or. And with the pandemic, it became a good opportunity for some student athletes to express themselves. We had a couple of them from different sports relate how the pandemic hit them and how they were coping with that. So we have a private Facebook group where pretty much all of our student athletes are members, and we just pitched the idea to them if anyone wanted to share their story, and we had a couple of replies, and they were great stories. So the way it works, I received their text, and then I use Adobe Spark Page. I don't know if you know this thing, but I suggest you take a look if you don't know what's Adobe Spark Page is, because it's a great way to create a web page with pictures or videos that are really well integrated, that gives you a much better look than a casual web page on your website. So, and you can embed it within your own website. So there's a free version that does a great job, but if you want to have more options like adding your team colors, your logo, you have to pay for a membership. It's like $13 a month, but we figure it's a good investment for all the great things that it can do. So like I said, I received their text. I look for grammar and spelling errors, of course, in those texts, but I never really change the way they tell their story, because it's the main thing here. I want them to tell it in their own words. And of course, I can help them once I receive their first draft with some ideas to develop, but that's it. And of course, that means that some stories will be better than others. Not everyone is a great writer, but those blogs resonate a lot within our fans, the actual student athletes and the alumni. So we are in the first months of the pandemic, and we are trying to find some content that's interesting. And we realized that we had a lot of our student athletes that are working on the front lines in one way or another. So we started to showcase them as our heroes of the day. So here we have a student athlete that was working as a paramedic in Montreal. So, and those social media posts ended up creating interview requests from mainstream media. So, so we had good coverage with that. We also had this idea to ask our student athletes to create simple exercise videos that you can do at home with pretty much no equipment at all. So here I'm going to show you one that was done by Jonathan Breton-Robert, a wide receiver for our football team, and his video was to teach. It was a tutorial on how to juggle with tennis balls. He said that he learned it at a very young age, and it helped a lot with his hand-eye coordination. And honestly, it's a great video. You can look it up. We put it up on our Rouge et Or YouTube channel. So we had a couple of those that were sent to us. Well, we asked the student athletes if they had ideas of something to do like that, and we just did a small edit, added a layer with the Rouge et Or logo, and that was it. That was a good content, and we even had a local TV station that asked us if they could play those videos. So that was another great thing for us. On the same subject, we have an annual 10K run at Laval, and the Rouge et Or track and field team is invested a lot in this event. So this year we decided to ask our track and field coach for a running training plan for those who wanted to participate in the event, or anyone who wanted to run and prepare for any event. So since running outside is pretty much the last thing we can do without any restraints, that was something easy for us to put forward. So for about a month leading up to the event, we had this weekly post with a running training plan created by our track coach, Sylvain Cloutier. So that was cool, even though the 10K run got canceled in the end, but that's another story. Of course, I know for this to happen, you need to have a good relation, a good collaboration from your coach, but talk to them. Sometimes you may even be surprised at some ideas that they might have. Oh yeah, next up for the kids. It's good sometimes to think out of the box and just get away from the sports only related content. Last March in Quebec, schools were closed. Parents were doing their best to work from home while trying to be the school teacher and entertainer for their trust. So we just did this simple thing here. We stripped the colors from our logo so that you could print it and color it. So that was a thing we did last March. Now, what do you do when you don't have your main product active to create social media content? You dive into nostalgia, like everyone else. That's what we did at Laval in many different ways. We started to broadcast some classic games, not necessarily a whole game, but like here in this post, there was a weekend where on one night we showed the fourth quarter of the women's basketball conference final that we won. Then on the second night, the fourth set from our men's volleyball team win over the national development team that was visiting us at the PEPs. So we had streamed those games on Facebook Live before, and this time we showed them on Facebook Premiere. I don't know if you used Facebook Premiere before, but it's kind of cool. Also, you have a timing where people can know when this is going to be presented live on Facebook, even though it's recorded before. So that's a cool feature that we use from time to time at Laval. All right, so we started a new feature that we called Appareil date en français, on this day in English, with the hashtag to go along. So we looked into the archive and started digging some photos from major events that happened in our program history. Some of you guys probably have been doing this for a long time, but for us at Laval, it was not something that we were doing regularly. And one of the reasons is we didn't have the info stocked in one place. So I created this Excel sheet file for our teams and started to identify major events that happened for them in the exact date. So that's a time-consuming thing to do when you start from scratch, but of course, it will help you a lot in the long run. And same thing goes with our photo archives. We have so many great pictures archived over the years, but a lot of them aren't identified. So it's kind of hard to find pics of the 1995 student athlete when you have to go through the entire 1995 archive one by one by each sports to find what you're looking for. So that's a thing we did a lot since the start of the pandemic, just identifying archived photos. So, you know, it's going to help you in the future. So back to the visual, as you see in the right corner of this one, we have a sponsor logo. So that was one way to give some visibility back to our major sponsors, since they don't have the same visibility they are used to have when we got live games. So that's one thing that we did. And this historical thing led up to another fun content, the Vanier Cup week. When I started building this archive of major events, I realized that our 10 Vanier Cup wins, they all happened on 6 consecutive days, from November 22nd to November 27th. So we just decided to showcase them all during a special event for a whole week in a pretty simple manner. As you can see, we had posts like this, a great picture from the win and a bit of interesting info about each win in a Did You Know presentation. And that worked great for us. Lots of reactions from fans, but also from alumni of those winning teams that were proud to share our posts. So we did it with football, but it could apply to any other sports. If you had, let's say, a volleyball dynasty at some point, chances are that the exact dates of all your wins are similar or in the close range, from every year. Next up, that's probably my favorite thing that we created during the pandemic. A feature that we called Dans la voûte Rougeard, from the Rougeard vault. We chose some major historic events in program history, and I just did Zoom interviews with two of the main actors of those events, often the head coach and a student athlete, just reminiscing the story of a national championship winning team, winning year. For example, here you see it's Gino Brousseau and head coach Clément Lemieux talking about the first men's volleyball national championship won by Laval in 1990. So we record the interview, the Zoom interview, and then my colleague Frederick puts in the layout, including a sponsor logo, adds pictures and videos in it, and we created build-ups before releasing it, small teasers of the discussion, and then we published the whole thing on Facebook Premiere. So before I was in a society at Laval, I worked as a journalist and radio host for 10 years or so. I had a lot of fun doing this, and it's also a lot of fun for those alumni to go back down memory lane, because those are such major events of joy in their life. So, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work to put these together, but it's totally worth it for so many reasons. Another thing we did was kind of handed out to us without us having to do much work. I talked earlier about the private Facebook group of all student athletes of the Rougeard. At some point this fall, they started to create some challenges within the group to keep things interesting. And one of those challenges was a good deed challenge. And there was so much good things coming out of this that at one point we just said, this can't be only private. People need to know about what you guys did. So we created a story in Adobe Spark showcasing the best things that the student athletes did during this challenge. It goes from plasma or blood donation to spending time with elderly people in nursing homes to snow shoveling a whole parking lot. That was something that worked great also for us. Now, when you don't have varsity sports going on, one of the best things to do is to look out for anything that might be related to your program and what alumni are doing. Of course, I know not anyone can brag about one of their alumni winning the Super Bowl like Antonio Claire. That's an easy one, but if you're on the lookout for what's happening around you, you might have some interesting ideas that pop. Here in this visual, with this year's CFL draft, we knew it would be kind of an off year for us. We didn't have many players that were going to get drafted compared to recent years, but we still found a way to talk about it and link this to our past. So in the days leading up to the draft, we did a short quiz for our fans that had to identify who were the masked alumni that were drafted over the years. So it's a simple thing, but it's effective. It's always effective and gets a lot of interaction with our fans. And the last example I want to show you today is a survey that we started to do every Friday at noon. The catchphrase in the post is always the same. It's Friday, let's settle something once and for all. Hashtag une fois pour toutes, en français, in French. So we go with simple questions. Here it's, do you prefer the golden or the black helmet? Now, as I said earlier, you can't do surveys on Facebook anymore with the options to click on them, but we just had a thumbs up and a heart on the visual for people to vote that way. And sometimes we go with an open question. You can only eat one thing at the tailgate. What is it? So with this feature, sometimes it's hit or miss, but some of them brought amazing interaction numbers on our Facebook page. There's even one where we had to change the question a bit because a lot of people were taking it a bit too seriously, I would say. It's this one here where we asked, if the Rouge et Or program were to add a new team, which one would you prefer? Men's rugby or women's rugby? And then the rugby community and hockey community was on fire. They were sharing our posts saying, help us get a team at Laval. Our athletic director reached out in the afternoon saying, can you explain clearly that it's just a game? The winner of this survey isn't getting a team. Because I am getting emails and calls of people who are actually working on maybe eventually presenting a project to us that don't understand really what's going on. So we had to adjust, but you just have to be careful with this type of content. It just goes to show how much impact creative content can have on your social media channels. So that's it. Thank you for listening. If you guys have any questions or want to share your personal content that work well in English ou en français, be our guests.
Thanks, Mathieu. I have a question actually to start off. Of all of those awesome examples you just provided, which ones kind of created the most impressions or interaction over your platforms?
Probably the last one I showed you. Like I said, it depends on the questions. Sometimes we get some reactions, but there were some questions that were huge hits. Because really, it's just something that provokes reaction. You know, sometimes it's simple. Like I said, I prefer the golden met better. Okay, but why? And no, it sucks. And no, you go with the classic black one or whatever. So it's simple, but it's things that work a lot for us. You know? And I think it works a lot for every circumstances.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? You can either put your hand up. Oh, okay, Jamie. Jamie's got a question. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thanks, Jill. Great job, Mathieu. Thank you for all the great info. I was just curious, one of the things that we struggled with at Laurier a lot over the past year has been just student athlete buy-in. You know, every time we've tried to go to our student athletes, you know, there's been almost zero buy-in from them. And, you know, whether that's how it normally is and we're asking more of them, or it's just what's been going on in the pandemic and their own personal lives, I'm not really sure. I'm curious if you found any difficulties with that during this, and if anybody else either had difficulties or didn't have difficulties. I'm just curious as to how people kind of found it to engage with student athletes over the past year or so.
Well, I would say that if I take the student athlete blog, for example, when we started this 6 years ago, I was pitching ideas to student athletes and in hopes that at some point they would pick it up and I would receive the story, the student athletes that were interested in doing this. It didn't materialize, I would say, but honestly, every time that I pitch a story, I always find someone who's interested in sharing something. Like I said, you don't. It's not always something that's awesome and out there, but over time you kind of get to know which student athletes would be best suited for whatever feature you want to pitch to. So you kind of zoom in on those that are gonna help you out, and sometimes they can just help you out, reach out to others also. That's what we do. We also have a student athlete committee where there's one representative from each team, and we have some meetings with our 80, I would say, not monthly, but about each 2 months we get together, and it's a good opportunity to share some messages and hear what they want to say, what they have to say, and that's our main point of contact. When we want to talk to the whole volleyball team, will go to their representative on the committee. So that's one way you can do, you can work to help reach out in a better way to your student athletes, I would say.
Awesome. Thanks, Mathieu.
There's a question from Connor in the chat. Was all of your examples primarily used on Facebook, Mathieu, or did you do it across like Twitter and Instagram as well?
It depends. Of course, for us, Facebook is the main thing because we got over 60,000 fans. So, but there's some features that work well on other platforms too. I would say that in Quebec, Twitter isn't as big as it is in the rest of Canada. It's more of a journalist thing. And so we don't have the same reach on Twitter. When we start to pitch some things, it doesn't work always. But there's some features that we do on all platforms. I would say when the historical stuff, we pitch it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. But there's some things that we only do on Facebook.
Hopefully that answered your question, Connor. Anybody else have any questions? Matt Packwood, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. That sort of leads into my question is just how you determine or how much customization goes into the content across the different channels. So if it's specific to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or what have you, how much work do you put into sort of customizing it for each channel, and how do you determine that process?
You're talking about the graphics visual or just the whole content itself?
I guess, yeah, the approach in general. Like, do you have strategies or anything like that in place to determine, say, we're going to do this for Facebook only or this for Instagram only, and then just, yeah, if you have a process in place for how that's determined?
Yeah, I would say, then again, I think it depends on every market. For us, like as I said earlier, Facebook is huge. It's where we reach the most people. But on Instagram, every content that's more picture or I'd say emotions related, that's where we will go mainly for everything that's fun to watch visually. Instagram is the place we go. Also, we know that most of our students are mainly on Instagram and less on Facebook. So if we want to do something that will reach out to the student athletes, we will make sure that we put it on Instagram. Twitter is for us, it's mainly news sharing stuff. That's probably well, we might, like I said, there may be some things that we will put out on all platforms, but it's mainly for us, Twitter. It's mainly for news sharing stuff, and when we have games, it's our play-by-play thing, of course. But that seems like a distant memory for now.
Thanks, Mathieu. I have a couple questions from Jordan Hall from Durham College. He asked, do you have content plans in place for the spring and summer, or do you just cross that road when you get there? So I guess, like, how far out do you plan your content?
I wish I had better planification, to be honest. There's some stuff that we do periodically. Let me think. For summer, of course, these are moments where we can work on some stuff that are more in-depth stories, because you got time normally to do it. But I guess the answer to your question is no, we don't really plan that much ahead, I would say. We go with the flow. Of course, there's some things that we know that we're going to do week in and week out, like the survey we're doing now every Friday, and my archived historical events. Of course, I know when I'm going to publish them in advance, but for the rest of it, we pretty much go with the flow, actually. like I said, I think it would be a good thing to have better planification on this, but for now, that's how we operate.
Awesome. Another one from Jordan. What is driving your content right now during the winter semester? What do you mean by that, Jordan? Sorry.
Jordan here.
This academic semester. What is driving your content right now through this academic semester?
I guess what works better is the historical things that we do. I'd say maybe last fall we had some teams that had the occasion to practice. So we went there. I took some pictures of them. We did some photo galleries, and that was awesome because they were just looking for it. So this was content that was working really well last fall. This winter we didn't have anything like this, but we just did yesterday an event in person, respecting every sanitary measures, of course, but we were honoring our all Canadian all academics, and they just came. They had a time slot where they could come and get their kind of a diploma or something like that, and we just took a picture of them with this, and a professional picture also that we will give them afterwards, and they were excited about this. The pictures were great. So, and this worked really well on our social media channels yesterday. So as soon as we get something that involves the student athletes, it's something that works well on our social media. That's what we're looking for, actually. But honestly, we are diving into nostalgia a lot. That's pretty much the most things that we do this winter. Be it just salute to on a particular day, something that happened that was a great win or a major event in our program. So those are pretty much the things that we're working a lot on to push on social media.
Awesome, thanks. Elisa from the University of Windsor has her hand up.
Thanks, Jill. And hi, Mathieu. Thank you so much for your presentation today. I love seeing what other schools are doing and seeing what works in different provinces and what works, like the same things. But I was wondering, we jumped on the podcast bandwagon, and I know some other schools did. Did you guys do that? And if you did, was it successful? Or if you didn't, was there a reason why you haven't chose to do it yet? Just curious.
No, we did not. I know our friends from Montreal did. Maybe they would be good. They would be better to answer this. I don't want to put them on the spot, but to answer it quickly, we didn't do it yet. It's not necessarily in our plans. Might be at some point, but we're not thinking about it right now.
Yes, we did. We did have a podcast. Not only this year, not this year. Sorry, I'm French. Because of non-competition, but the two years before we did have a podcast, and it went pretty well. Did you have any question regarding podcasting?
Yeah. What were some of your more some of the topics that gained more attention or had more listeners? We're finding some of them, well, just aren't great. And can you talk to me about length? How long did you keep them?
We tried because we did 3 episodes per week, all recorded within 1/2 day on Tuesday. So we tried to keep it at half an hour, not over that, because even if you always have crazy stats all over the place, as for people who left after 1 minute and people who left after half an hour, I'd say around the 15-16 minutes for what we call engaged listener was around the average. The most popular episode, because we had one episode on Tuesday, which was the weekend recap of all the competitions. So it was more of a news bulletin, more news discussion, I'd say. And on Wednesday, it was an interview with a student athlete. And on Thursday, it was a preview of the weekend. And on football weeks, it was what we call the tailgate, which was a pregame of the football game. By far the most popular one, besides the popularity of sports, was the interview, because you catch the micro surrounding of the athlete. Teammates and family were really engaged in the content in comparison to the news, which was all sports, and was more of for us, it was more of an internal communication tool that we used it for, which was not only to give results, but to give more information. But it was mostly listened by the Carabin family at large. And as for the interviews, it caught with the surroundings of the athlete in question.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, that's a good point. We used to do a video recap of our action every week, but we stopped doing this at some point. First of all, it was time consuming. My Mondays were complete with that task, but I loved it. It was a great product, I think. But in the end, we found out that maybe sometimes the simpler things work even better. As you said, Renaud, every time we go more in depth with student athletes, that's when we get the best results. And I mean, the other thing that I didn't talk about it during my presentation because everyone else is doing it, but just the presentation of rookies on our social media, these get huge numbers. Every time we put up a graphic and welcoming a new recruit in any club, and it drives more new fans to your channels, because now you got the family of this recruit that is saying, "Oh, you're so cute on this photo with this new uniform," and that's probably I answered I gave a different answer earlier, but that's probably the recruits graphics are probably what worked the best for us this past year, I would say.
Does anyone else have any other examples of any content that they put out over the last, almost like 11 months now? But I can start. The thing that we're finding has a lot of success, and it's a simple, just a question, like just an Instagram story question. We've done a couple, for example, who is your favorite varsity blue of all time? And they just answer the question, and then you have to obviously go onto your photo server from home, which can be hard, but find a photo of that person, post their answer with the photo. We did one yesterday, which was, what was your favorite memory? So just people, it was mostly championships, but some people did silly things. But there's just, that's just one example of like, it's time consuming. It can be time consuming based on answers, but it's just an easy, engaging question to ask. Okay, we have a question. Yeah. Sorry, I can see a hand up, but I can't see who it is. I don't know why.
It's me, Jill.
Oh, hi, sorry, go ahead.
Ian in Lethbridge. I just was going to share one of the things that we've had some success with this year was we had one athlete from one team interview 3 athletes from a different team, and just kind of do a fun, the only requirement I gave them was what was their decision to pick University of Lethbridge. And then the rest of it is all kind of just fun questions, getting to know the athletes. And, it took a little bit to get the athlete buy-in, but it seems to be getting some traction now. We've got, I think, about 5 or 6 of them out so far, and we're going to do at least enough for each team, and then maybe expand it depending on time.
That's awesome. Chris has his hand up.
I was just going to go back to what Jamie said about engaging athletes and stuff. So we have a Ridgeback Leadership Council. So I have a group chat with those individuals. So my way of kind of getting some engagement this year is even bouncing ideas off them to make them feel like they're involved in the process. Because right now, like, we weren't training for a while, obviously. And I know some teams aren't going back to training for a little bit. I think of obviously Jill being in Toronto. But yeah, like, that's my thing, is just having a group chat. And then if we do need some push to get some content back, we just go directly to them. And then they're the ones that have to deal with their teammates and whatever. So that's worked for us this year specifically. Because normally I would just show up to a training session and say, I need this athlete, or I need 2 athletes, who's doing it. So.
All right, awesome, Chris. Earl the Pearl, how are
Hey,
ya?
Jill the Thrill, what up? Just one thing that we've been trying to do, and I found it's had a good response from some media, and especially from our alumni. I'm not sure how much the students are that engaged in it or interested, but I always do. I try and find at least once a week this date in history, or I call it this week in history, so it's more relevant for the whole week. So I put it up. So if we have an anniversary of a handicap championship and it's on the 27th, so I put it up about on the 23rd, roughly 4 days before, 3 days before, and I write this week in history. But I mention the date so that it's clear when someone clicks on it that they know what date is the actual anniversary, especially for media people that might want to do a follow-up. And I found that I've done quite a bit of those during this this long break that we've had, and I've had a pretty good response, especially from alumni, and the odd media response as well, where they pick it up. And today, even one of the former sports editors of the Montreal Gazette, who now works for NHL.com, knows that I've been posting these things, and he sent me an email with a this date in history from an event that happened 45 or 50 years ago with McGill, with the opening of our gym. So I find that media are not only using some of the stuff they put, they're also sending me stuff. It's been an interesting response, and it's sort of a light thing to do. You don't have to do much more than a few lines. Hopefully you put a photo in there or some sort of graphic image. And so what I do is I look at when our teams won championships, see if I can ascertain the date when they won the championship. Then I go back and see if I can do a short little write-up about it. On this day in history, they did this, or someone scored 48 points in a game as McGill demolished Concordia, something like that. So I find that is kind of a way to keep me interested, engaged. It keeps our alumni engaged. And as I say, I'm not sure how much of the students are engaged or not, but I've been getting a pretty good response, better than I anticipated for that.
Awesome, thanks, Earl. Sorry, I should have mentioned Earl is from McGill University. Not everyone knows who Earl the Pearl is, but you should. Elisa has her hand up again. Elisa from the University of Windsor.
Okay, I have to tell you guys, it's my favorite thing, my new thing. We started a game show. It's called The Joust, because we're Lancers. But anyway, it's super fun, and I've got really super cheesy music and a logo and an announcer who's like over the top in these crazy suits. Like they're nuts. And I have athletes from like the men's soccer team and the women's soccer team. They go head to head on questions about soccer, the community, the university, and that kind of stuff. And they go through 2 rounds of questions, and then we have the super cheesy music and my announcer come back on. And it's been really fun. A new one comes out on Saturday if you want to check it out.
And what's that on? Is that Instagram or YouTube?
It's on Instagram. We put it on our YouTube channel as well. So it'll be on our website, on Instagram, Twitter, everything. We post it everywhere because it's so fun.
Awesome.
So I had to share because it's like my favorite new thing we do.
I love it. A question there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I'll get to one for social content, esports. So this is Jordan again from Durham College. They have a varsity esports program, and I know a bunch of other universities do as well. So there's plenty of content there if any other institutions are involved with their esports or at all. What are they doing for their esports team, I guess? I I don't know anything about esports. I apologize. So I'm not sure where
I
they are at.
I can jump in. I can turn my mic on here for a
Okay,
second.
Jordo.
It's just pretty much taking the spot of what we would typically be doing with regular teams. So putting up daily schedule, like game day stuff, putting up game results, trying to keep track of all the different leagues they're playing in. I don't know how many other schools are involved in esports, but I will let you know that it is a headache, that's for sure. It doesn't run nearly as similar as just a regular sports schedule, but in terms of filling that gap, it's definitely done that job for sure.
Awesome. I know esports kind of falls into different places at each university, so I'm not sure if anyone else on this call is in charge of their esports team. But a couple other questions. Sorry,
The
go
hardest,
ahead.
I will just say the hardest part too is just you know, sometimes teams will just be like, our best player is not going to be able to make it tonight, so we'll reschedule. And that would be nice, I'm sure, if we could do that with all our other sports, but I'm sure sometimes our quarterback's hurting this week. Let's try next week would work out well for some schools, but yeah, like I said, it's definitely filled a void, that's for sure.
Interesting. All right. Spencer Murdoch from the University of Ottawa.
Hi, guys. Quick question just on any other schools that have a large amount of team accounts, like team-specific accounts, apart from their main account. How has that been going for anybody? And has there been, I know some accounts have just been quiet the entire time because there hasn't been the amount of effort being able to spread across if you have shorter staffs or anything, or if you are still trying to pump out content across, well, however many accounts that you have, just kind of want to see what everybody else is doing.
Well, at Laval, we aren't running those team accounts. Usually it's student athlete, often coaches who put some content on this. We started during this pandemic to put some more, I'd say, guidelines about what to do, what not to do, because sometimes it was just out there and just not really up to par from what we want to put out as content. But it's not easy, of course, because you deal with lots of different individuals, some people that don't really understand the basic ways to use those channels. But I mean, on our end, we're starting to I wouldn't say control them, but just giving them some tips and some heads up on some things that we prefer them to do. And we tend to tell them that we prefer that every graphic or visual content comes from us. At some point, it happens that they put something out and it's ugly as hell, and we're just, man, why are you doing this? You're thinking that you're helping your team, but yeah, we're trying to work on this to have a good communication with everyone who's involved in those social media pages. But it's not easy.
Does anyone else kind of has anyone taken over some team accounts? Spencer, are you doing team accounts at Ottawa?
Yeah, we kind of went through a bit of a transition where we have one of the unique setups where our main account is still managed primarily through our marketing side of things. And then the team accounts have been somewhere in between, depending on who's dealing with the level of management. Over the past, I guess it's only been a couple of months, but throughout the pandemic, the team account ownership is transferred back to us. In terms of like the overall stuff, but we don't have, usually we have work study positions and a couple of casual ones to help out. Obviously we don't have that same amount in this time. So yeah, I'm pretty much sitting on like 10 different accounts. Just trying to, like, they're not going to be fully active all the time, but it's a lot. So that's where the question comes from. But a lot of it right now is just like kind of recruits or little updates or whatever's happening. But as we're getting into as we went into Orange this past week, there was more like, hey, we want to get stuff at practice, and can we do this? We want to get this out on, and it's like this. I can see it becoming a much bigger issue as we keep going on here. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Just a comment from Andrea from Ryerson. They're investing in hiring one student, an employee, like a work study or a career boost for each of their 8 varsity teams next season, and they'll report to her and the coach to coordinate that. I think that's a really good solution, Andrea. Actually, that's awesome. And I know you have plenty of people to choose from who have those skills at Ryerson, which I'm very jealous about.
We should chat, Andrea. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it'll actually roll out because we haven't done it yet. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Okay, are there any other questions for Mathieu about today's topic before we wrap up?
Jill, there was a good question from Andy of Guelph about what everyone was planning to do to honor seniors. I know on our end, every year we we do. Usually there's a ceremony, let's say at the last local game, but since it's not happening, we usually present them a framed picture, and we're still doing it this year. But the moment we're going to give them is still to be determined. We're hoping that we might have sports next fall where we can invite them and then honor them in a proper way. But if it's not happening, we'll find a way to do this.
All right. Thanks, everybody. If there aren't any more questions, I'll just wrap up here. We really appreciate all of the work that Mathieu did to put on this excellent presentation. Over 50 people is another awesome showing. So we appreciate you all taking the time to log on. Our goal, like CANSIDA's goal, is to provide these monthly webinars to get together and learn from each other. So if you do have any ideas of any topics that would be of benefit to you, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the CANSIDA executive and let us know. The next one we're going to do is scheduled for Thursday, March 25th at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be a bit of a town hall or panel discussion on how everyone is preparing for the eventual return to sport. We will have our divisional day for COSIDA on May 27th. So you can mark your calendars and we'll send around, our regional reps will send around a calendar invite for that. And then the COSIDA virtual convention is running from June 7th to 10th this year, and that's all virtual. So they'll have lots of online programming, so we'll look out for their schedule coming out. A couple last updates in case you didn't see the announcement. Ben posted it on our Facebook group. COSIDA has just adjusted their membership fees for Canadians to account for the exchange rate. This is a huge win for us, so I encourage you all to take advantage of it if you aren't already. And the last one, we've officially kicked off our CANSIDA mentorship program. We did have quite a few more mentors than mentees, so if anyone feels that they could benefit from a seasoned veteran perspective, please reach out to me and we can get you paired up. So again, feel free to reach out to any of us, Mathieu in particular, if you have any questions, and we really appreciate you logging on today. A big thank you to Mathieu, and we hope you have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.